Hey there, welcome back to Ask Amy. I have a question today from Gabriel. She says, my boyfriend of 3 years is a smoker, not cigarettes, usually just weed. Over the years, it's shifted from marijuana to edibles to vaping, back to marijuana, etc. This work has been extremely transformative for me over the last 4 years in many areas of my life. But for some reason, this area is an honest blind spot for me. Whenever he smokes, I get this visceral reaction in my body. Not all the time. The sensations change. Sometimes I feel this tenseness in my chest and stomach. Sometimes it feels like my body is frozen. Sometimes my mind wanders thinking his eyes are too red, he's been high all weekend, he smoked 4 times this week, etc. He knows that I'm not a fan of the smell and he's shifted to vaping, but I just think I don't like him smoking at all. He also knows it's not a particularly good experience for me sometimes when he does this. Maybe it's some conditioning around substance abuse in the Black community, growing up with religion and parents, or me thinking he's mellowing some of his feelings, or a combination of it all. Who knows? I've also noticed that I sometimes have these microaggressions toward him. I want to be a loving partner, and I want to accept him for all that he is. Even in me saying that, I know it's a reflection that I probably don't radically accept myself for all that I am. It's interesting because I've also done edibles and smoked a bit before, but not as often as him. My experience toward him while smoking can be very visceral to very unbothered, so it leads me to think I can be controlling and judgmental toward him with my thinking. Do you have any advice on how to navigate this better? Writing this down has helped me to move some of the energy. So, yes, I love this question, and you're wanting to look at this for yourself. And it sounds like you have looked at this for yourself a little bit. Like, you're thinking maybe there's something about yourself and that's being projected onto him, and you have some ideas about maybe it's conditioning around this or conditioning around that. So I think all of that's great, but here's my hunch, and you just see what fits for you. My hunch is, and you say it, so not really my hunch, but you say, so it leads me to think I can be controlling and judgmental toward him with my thinking. And you say, I want to be a loving partner and accept him fully for all that he is. So I think you're looking, but you're kind of only halfway looking or partly looking because you maybe, you don't want these things to be true. It looks to you perhaps like this would make you, if you hate the fact that he smokes and you have all kinds of judgments about it, that those look personal to you. So they kind of sometimes can not really want to be seen. We sort of know they're there, but we want to skip over here and well, how can I just be loving and accepting of everything, rather than kind of really looking at what is showing up for us, really, really looking at it. And here's the thing about that. It's not about you. You can do that. You can look right at it. You can feel the discomfort, feel these visceral reactions when they show up. Look for and listen to what is going on in my head right now? What am I believing? What are the judgments? What is being thought right now? What is this reminding me of, him smoking? What is it? What are you projecting? What is your mind projecting onto your future together, given that he does this? Really look at that stuff, because listen, it's not about you. None of that is personal. None of it is. Even when it's conditioned, stereotypical stuff that you don't believe, it's still there. And that's the thing. It's when this stuff is there, again, it doesn't mean that you stereotype him or judge him or any of that. Other people tell us this stuff. We learn stuff, right? We learn it all over the place. And then it feels like there are feelings and our judgments and our fears because they're showing up here in what we call my experience. But it's not really yours. You aren't necessarily thinking this. If you've just grown up in a culture that judges this, then of course there's going to be some judgment. This is actually something I studied in graduate school, total aside. But in psychology, we could study these, what we called implicit stereotypes, where all a stereotype is a learned association. Now, that doesn't mean that anyone would act on them. It doesn't mean we believe them. And we could kind of see that these stereotypes were present for people in their mind whether they were a person who would act on that or whether they were a person who would never in a million years act on that. So the stuff we've learned, like you say, all the conditioning, all of that stuff, it's not personal. It's not about you. It means nothing about your boyfriend. It means nothing about your relationship. But it would be super valuable for you to just be insanely curious, like a detective, very neutral, and just say, what is it? What's coming up? I just want to know. I just want to know what I've been told or what my mind's making up, and get it out, write it out. Now, you don't have to tell him. You don't have to share that with him because maybe he would take it personally too, and then that might not be good. Again, it's not personal about either of you. But I think for your sake, again, to really go into the feelings that are showing up and get insanely curious about what your fears are and what your judgments are and what those beliefs are, knowing that they're not really your fears and your judgments, could be so, so, so helpful. You're just going to get to see it with fresh eyes. When we are so well-meaning, we're like, I don't want to be judgmental. I want to accept him. That's beautiful. But it keeps us from looking because we don't want to see something we don't want to see sometimes, So that's just kind of my hunch here. And I just want you to check that out and see how that resonates with you. I love how you say writing this down has helped to move some of the energy. That's all I'm talking about. That's exactly right. And that's exactly what happens. And that's what this process does. Next time he's smoking, let yourself fully feel and go right into those feelings, whatever's showing up, and just notice all the stories and judgments, whatever they might be. That will move some of the energy rather than, oh my gosh, he's doing it again. What's wrong with me that I feel this way? That's, again, a mind kind of trying to bypass a bunch of feeling and then turn around and pin it on you and make it your problem and something that you need to fix about yourself. It's not your problem. It's also not his problem. It's nobody's problem. It's just something to fully let in and get really, really curious about. And it can look then like, okay, then what do I do? Well, you'll know what to do then. There is no what's next. You feel it. You look at it. You see it. You see what it's made of. And next steps, if there are some, if there's a conversation to have, if there's whatever there is, that reveals itself in the process of doing this. So just fully look like a neutral detective first, and then I know you'll see some steps if there are any after that. So I hope that's helpful. Thank you so much for sending the question. It's a great question. Anyone can send questions to askamy@thelittleschoolofbigchange.com, and I will speak to them every Monday. Thanks, everyone. Have a great week.